here at the WTJU performance stage on Ivy Road, Charlottesville, Virginia.
We're moving up. We're moving on up to the east side.
How you feeling today, Razor?
I feel good. I have a good friend coming in talking about a subject that nobody really wants to engage, honestly. They're going to give a great perspective. They're also my spiritual leader. They're a good friend to me, just as you are. And we're talking about situations where, while some people tune in and listen to it and say it may have taken too long to get to the point, that's the point. You know what I'm saying? Everybody wants a microwave society of things that they don't really care about. As long as they say that they listen to it, then they feel like they've done their part. That's not what we're here for. Our thing is to implement change. That's not going to be fast. If it was, it wouldn't really matter. Somebody else would have done it. So I'm looking forward to the bumps in the road because I know that, we're going where we need to go. If it gets easy, then we failed.
Well, this is kind of trippy coming back from vacation back into Charlottesville in August. And all of the kind of residual heaviness of those memory cycles for me. And probably for everybody in Charlottesville around that. But then the fact that we did the first 3 shows, recorded and a while back.
And now we're
I'm like, so what's this show about again?
What are we talking about?
But just to your point,
I
think the point of this is that we're just going to be up here and be vulnerable and talk about some big things that have black truths and white truths that maybe black and white people don't even vocalize.
Nah, they don't.
Or admit to.
They don't feel comfortable,
And then also realizing that there's experts in the world who study this type of stuff, and we're maybe humble specimens for their study.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like we're not experts on how to theorize and navigate the black-white race conversation for you with your friends and family, but we are, friends.
Yes, absolutely.
Who are in business together in various ways, who are in media, and also, center ourselves spiritually in our professional lives in certain ways that make this acknowledgement or confrontation with black-white stuff.
You know what, Giles? This is also an extension of Ep4. This conversation wouldn't have been able to been had on live radio, live podcasting, live streaming without Ep4 happening. One of my businesses flourished because of Ep4, the media, the black media part that I'm in, flourished because of Ep4. Things were changed because George Floyd was murdered. Things were changed because Emmett Till were murdered. So when you have these type of conversations that are difficult, it's a reason because they bring on change. So.
Yeah, I feel you. And to your point, you mentioned George Floyd. Just reflecting a little bit on last episode with James.
Yeah.
And black and white truths around police and their role in society. What do you reflect on from that conversation? What takeaways do you have? What would you circle back to?
James really helped me understand that regardless of how I'm guilty of this, and I have to be transparent. When I look at certain African American men that have aspired to a certain point, that may have married differently, chose different paths, you tend to think at times that they don't go through the same struggles as the people who are considered everything that black people are in America. That's just being honest, right? So for him to sit here and say, look, I get pulled over, I struggle with these things, I do all this, and I'm only using James because James is a friend of mine. So when he talked to me and brought a transparency to let me understand, forget what my credit score is, my bank account, I get treated like you until they understand who I am.
Or you say he was white on paper.
He's white on paper. James Watson, my friend.
And his eye twitched when you
Yeah,
said that.
yeah.
He didn't say anything.
But he can't. He can't because it's offensive that a black man would tell another black man that you're that.
I wanted to stay out of that one.
Right, but then all I would have said to my friend is write down all your accomplishments. And then we're gonna give it to somebody. And you tell me who these people are.
Yeah, and for me, it's just, even listening to the two of you talk, as a white man and as a dad, you know, reflecting on the show before that, just the feeling of not having to deal with that fear of what's going to happen to my son coming home from the party for no reason.
Not even the party, playing at the playground.
Everywhere, right. Just hearing it from James and just connecting that to his motivation and passion to be part of the difference on the CRB, and then also being straight up about how little power and influence they have, and then seeing some news clips since that show that, you know, they're moving the steps forward administratively in Charlottesville. It's cool to see. I mean, you know, people are doing amazing things. Things have changed since A12.
Yes.
We are talking. We wouldn't have been talking.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. This is a further extension of A12, but I'm anxious to get to today's show. Who owns America? You know, and the reason I wanted to do this show is because when you look at how the government said that they could seize the land because who founded it? One of my daughters is in law school. And this is her first case that she talked about. She called home talking to her mom, and I was eavesdropping. And it was very relevant for what I understood. Because the land was founded by people, they say they owned it. Then you're taught that if you work hard and break your back, you can own some things here in America. That's what America's about. Well, when it comes to African Americans, who's worked harder than us? And what do we own? And when it comes to people who are already there, it's kind of hard for me to believe that you can find something that I'm already standing on. So we found ourselves a very, very, very well-spoken, well-respected person of the Native American community to come on and talk about essentially black truths, white truths, and Native American truths.
Let's bring him in. Pastor Rodney.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, man.
Yes, indeed.
Hook you up.
Get hooked up here, ready to go.
But this idea of ownership, Razor, you talked about, and just getting down to the business of who owns America, and what white minds think about that. Trying to wrap my head around that in my own family and in my own life experience, you know, comes back a lot for me to my time on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation when I was really pretty much just out of college, teaching high school, teaching kids, you know, who were 18, 19, 20 in some cases, when I was 24, right? Coming out of Princeton and being on the res in Kyle, South Dakota, you know, 900 people in the town. Poorest county per capita in America, Shannon County, South Dakota at that time. And just learning. And then my job was to teach American literature. Native Americans. Right?
Yeah.
And these kids are looking at me, they're 20, they got cousins and brothers my age, you know, who are like 8th on the totem pole in their family, right? And they're looking at me like, who are you, dude?
Yeah. You know what? Can I be honest with you? That is the strangest thing to me, and is that occasionally, no, more often than not, I ain't even gonna sugarcoat it. White America will tell everybody else how they should look at themselves. And I haven't understood why that is the case. Like, you're teaching American history on an Indian reservation. You know, like, I mean, it's like I'm in the food service business. If I set up right now and I start selling, for lack of a better term, Chinese food, you'd be like, what in the world you know about selling some Chinese? In China, like, it just doesn't make sense. So whenever you have people trying to tell you about something that you're living, it seems difficult. Like, how is that possible?
Well, one thing, first of all, I want to shout out to my native people. I'm from the Lumbee tribe. A lot of people only know the Cherokee tribe, but there's more tribes than just the Cherokee tribe. So I want to shout out to the Lumbee tribe. And the Lumbee people are a lost colony. We didn't know who we really were. We were left behind, and we settled around the Lumber River in Lumberton, North Carolina, so we're a lost colony. And so we said, we don't know what tribe we actually belong to, so what we'll do, we will live peacefully with the white man, and we would adapt the way of the white man. And so what we did, instead of us living in what they call teepees and on reservations and stuff, we decided to have our own little reservations where we still lived in long houses, just like the white people did. And so what brought us together was that we still knew our heritage, and we said, instead of being like the other tribes, what we would do, we would try to bring the culture of the white people and the Indians together and the blacks all together so that we could live peacefully. And what we found out with that is, as we did that, a lot of whites especially didn't understand our culture. And so what they did, they understood us to be black. And so Henry Berry Lowry was considered an outlaw. And so back in the 1800s and so, and the 1900s, we weren't allowed to vote. We were considered black, so we weren't allowed to vote. We was considered slaves. And so what people don't realize, even in this this setting, that the land that we own, okay, first of all, break the ice here. If you drop $100 and I find it, is it not your $100 just because I found it? So here we are. The first thing we want to do, we're going to celebrate Columbus Day because we said Columbus founded America. Well, the Indians was already here. So because he found it doesn't mean that we were not already here. And so whenever we look at finding something, even though we found it, and I know that you dropped it, it doesn't become mine. It still belongs to you, whether I give it to you or not.
Was it dropped or was it took?
Well, and we go back to that point to where because of the culture of the native people, we just wanted to live on the land. We just wanted to do our thing on the land. The white man came to discover the land, not only to discover the land, but to see what he could do to make profits and make different things off the land. And again, we were already here, so how can you find something that was already where we were already here? How can you find that just because you said that you discovered it? It doesn't make it your land. And so going back to the South Dakota
Giles?
thing.
Well, no, so for you, right, your perspective is when he says, who owns America?
Yeah.
What's your answer?
Yeah.
Well, I feel like the native people own America because we were here, and those parcels of land, and I'm not even going to some of our native background where they say, oh, they sold New York for liquor or beer or whatever. Not even going back to that. I'm saying whenever Columbus came over here, we were already here, and so how can the white man say he discovered something that I'm already planted on?
Right.
And so that's the biggest. So in our culture, the native people, we do not celebrate Columbus Day. It's Indigenous Day, because we believe that the Indian people are the one that was already here. My ancestors were already here, and whenever he came over, how do you take ownership of something that is already possessed?
Yeah. Yeah, and the world's caught up with that. I mean, we have Indigenous Peoples Day in the state and everything like that. The world's caught up in some ways, but they don't really go back to the basics of the conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm coming back from vacation in Maine, right? And Very white thing to do. Take the kids and drive to Maine in August with everybody else buying lobsters. But so that's what we're doing, right? And it was fun.
Yeah.
But Bar Harbor, Maine is like, I mean, this place, I read in the news that like all the national parks are overrun right now. No one's got anywhere to go, so just getting in the car and going to the park. So it's like the busiest season in history. But Bar Harbor is just overrun with tourists.
Yeah.
All white, all money, just ice cream, pizza, tchotchkes, crafts, you know, all that stuff, right? And right around the park there's a little building. It's called the Abbey Museum. It's right off the park in downtown Bar Harbor. And we're just trying to get away from the crowd and get up there. I knew about the museum from my time in the museum world, and it's the history, the native history of Maine. So it's the story of you know, the Micmac, Penobscot, Wabanaki world, and the arrival story of the whites. And you could sit outside in Bar Harbor and watch the whole, you know, summer in white America happening at the highest volume. And there's about 8 people in this little museum that has no line, nobody inside. And it has some of the most beautiful, like, storytelling and artifacts, but also it's centered around indigenous identity up there and decolonization, the whole exhibition spaces. And the tourists aren't there. So to the point of like, we'll say, okay, yeah, sure, we're all for Maine indigenous people.
Right.
We just don't actually want to deal with the story.
And that's America's story, though. That's America's story.
I mean, we're coming back to Who Owns America. Razor, you gonna go?
Yeah. My thing was, okay, who I was raised to be and who I became is 2 different people. I was raised to be respectful. I was raised to be non-confrontational for no reason. You know, I was raised to be, for lack of a better word, submissive. You know, what I ended up becoming was a person who spoke my mind. You know, I walked by the beat of my own drum. And that's what has worked for me. I don't recommend that for everybody. When it comes to what I've learned of America is that the story was told like, you know, if I look back and say, okay, you go to America, you find your plot of land, you build your house with the white picket fence, and you know, you have ownership, right? And then I was taught if you work hard, you can have something, right? So then I look back over how hard black people worked, but have very little. And what they did have was taken or burned down, or they learned to blend in, as Pastor Rodney said, and try to live in peace. So then you're in a place where you're not celebrated but tolerated. As long as I don't mind you, but don't make no ruckus, don't stir the pot. As like the place where I live at now, you have certain people that tend to say in that region, don't stir the pot. Like, you do a good job of stirring the pot, keep stuff going. And all I do is ask questions. So if I or my people have worked hard, helped build what we call America to what it is today, why don't we own anything? You know, why, if black people ask for money, reparations, it's looked as a handout, but will help every other place. You know, you don't say that to Korea. You don't say that to the people that the Nazis did something. You don't say that to Afghanistan people, places that we bomb. You know what I'm saying? We'll send money. We'll help, right? So
Black infrastructure plan.
Right.
$3.8 trillion black infrastructure plan.
So why is it so easy to send money abroad than it is to help somebody here at your own doorstep?
Yeah, I mean, we have to. Well, I was talking to Charles about how the show was going, and he was like, "Man, y'all have a hard job.
Yeah.
You're trying to tell the history of black and white America, speak for yourselves, and speak for people like you, which you might not even agree with. And so I agree. We have to do a good job to do this well. Yeah. But I always say I want to center it back just from my own experience. This has always been one of the mind worlds to me of America. If America starts, the United States starts with the Constitution, say that, or the Revolution, whatever. And that's, Virginia's all hung up on that, right? Because that's what, we're right in the middle of it. And this conversation that many white Virginians, I'll say, are obsessed with, which is the role of the founders of the Constitution in the creation of America and its blueprint.
Okay.
And then what that means when you talk about Mr. Jefferson's University and A12 and race in Charlottesville, we know, this town now knows how to get to the depth of that conversation. But we don't always even get to the place where in the Constitution we established human rights and property rights at once. And one set of people was both. And the identity of property rights came from British common law, which were already in the courts, and that was how land had already been bought and transferred in Virginia.
Right.
So we married those British property rights theories in our legal system to natural law theories that the founders penned, and we didn't apply them to black people or to Native people in most cases, although the Cherokee did for about 100 years, and then it was taken. And you asked me about, you talk about the Lumbee or the Cherokee. Even in the Cherokee, there is no one Cherokee nation. There's the Eastern Band. There's the Cherokee Nation. There's 3 or 4 associated tribes in Oklahoma with Cherokee identity and Choctaw identity. How did we get such specific land rights for such specific small groups of people all over the country?
Let's go back a little bit further. Who decided who was a Native American or Indian, or what was a tribe that will say, okay, we'll identify them as an Indian tribe? Like that makes no sense. Like whenever race comes into play, it always seems like whoever constructed it did it as a means of separating people. So if, let's say for instance, back then, if the Lumbee said, okay, we'll live in peace and do this, well, we're going to go ahead and recognize you so we can give you some money. But you have to exercise everybody else. So the Lumbee might have not have wanted to live in peace initially, but were ostracized out, and you were left no choice. Because it seems like we do a lot of that still today. So what's to think that the mindset isn't the same? Because to my understanding, people only promote people that are going to keep what they want going. Well,
what happens is whenever we begin to look at this, we begin to segregate one another, because go back to the Indians. So we got Choctaw, we got Chickasaw, we got Cherokee, we got all these tribes that are separate, and they begin. So how do you say that you have Cherokee blood or that you have Lumbee blood? Who decides that? Who decides what the blood? Is it just because of our ancestors or what's passed down as we begin? So, for y'all, it's not like you really have, you could be Poland or Irish or whatever, it's totally different. We Native American, but we're still separated by tribes. Y'all not separated by tribes. But at the end of the day, so the segregation comes here. Now, for our culture and for who we are, one of the things that happens is that our culture, so the Cherokee people, they own the gambling casinos, and they own their land, and they own their little property where they are. But in order for them to give over their land, now this has nothing to do with black or white, they don't want to have other tribes recognized, because now we have to share that money, the government money, with those people. So
you're picking fights with the Indians live on Facebook.
Somebody locked the door.
Here we are. I can talk about that because
Lord Jesus.
You can't talk. And I'm from North Carolina, so I can talk about that. So I'm just saying right now, we have a problem within our own culture, much less bringing the white or the black people in to determine whose land is whose land, because now this casino belongs to the Cherokee, this casino belongs to the Chippewa, this casino belongs to ever who, and it's our casino, and the Lumbee people walk up here because y'all sold us out to the white people. That's how they feel, because we live peacefully with the white people. So even going back to us,
Black people have that too, though.
yeah. Okay. So I see. You know that culture.
African Americans, from Haitians to Jamaicans to, like a lot of people, I don't mean to cut you off, Pastor Rodney, but a lot of people look at where you landed as opposed to where you took off from.
Yeah.
Like if I get on a boat and get dragged over here, how can I not be considered African anymore just because I touched down over here? Or because, it's so many different, without even getting into, did the Dutch settlers give somebody some alcohol so then black people caught black people and then sold them in the door of no return? And, but that whole separation, when you hear people, white people do it to each other too, because like I say, I'm from England, or I'm from Switzerland, or I'm from, but that's like jurisdiction based. I don't know that y'all look at it like a whole nother set of people.
Well, we've been talking about this. What is white identity, and and what is white American identity? And for me, it's a complicated question. I don't think there is really a cultural identity. I think there's an identity with a success story, and that success story also is built on a certain type of narrative of progress that almost forces white people to lie to themselves about these main basic principles of the country, and also feel threatened by any approach to that truth. Right? You all gonna just say that we're so bad and everybody's got to pay you all for all that pain now.
You ain't even got to go back that far. All you got to do is say Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Then it's Blue Lives Matter. Right. Then it's, you know what I'm saying? It's like...
Right. So we're not people. We white people aren't people.
Yeah, right.
People. We're never...
Yeah, everybody's like...
together. And it's like,
I don't understand it.
This is the thing. What people call white fragility is actually a relationship to a lie. And it's a relationship that's the maze that we run through to get the cheese, right? And so it's cheese-based. White culture is cheese-based. Are you successful? And then how do you tell the story of that success? And that's what American history is. I mean, there's Alan Taylor at UVA, their own professor of history, 2 Pulitzer Prize winners, wrote a book that's so dense I can barely read it on the period from 1740 to 1830 or whatever, and explained the native role in the formation of the country from a white historical perspective in terms of treaty rights between the British, the French, and the northeastern tribes, and how that came into law, and then how that kicked down south, but nobody knows this. Nobody reads this. They don't teach this in history class. And honestly, to your point, it's also a white supremacist narrative that pits, tribes and regions and treaty identified constituencies against each other.
Yeah. Well, check this out. So I go to the DMV. I'm Native American. My sister, who has a doctor's education, and she sits on the board of Indian education all over the East Coast of North Carolina. She knows. Yeah, she works with the Native people all the time, sign grants and do all this stuff. So going back to my DMV story, she has in North Carolina. She can get an American Indian plate. I come to Virginia. They don't even offer an American Indian plate. So what I'm saying is, what's the difference because I'm in Virginia that I cannot get an American Indian plate just because of my location again? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, you have to look at this is the birthplace of America, Pastor, and for acknowledgement to come from here in Virginia also acknowledges what really went on in Jamestown.
Yeah.
what really went on in the back streets of where UVA is brought. So, so it's easier to do it out in North Dakota and talk about what South Dakota, I'm sorry, South Dakota.
Mustang, South Dakota. Mustang fried.
But when you start doing it here, when you start bringing a light here, the what you're going to face, like some of the things that we talk about can even affect us in the courtroom.
It's brutal out there.
Is it?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Whites hate Indians in those places, and the feeling's mutual, and in ways that people on the coast don't even get. That's still part of the reality of America. The on reservation, off reservation conflict between Native nations and their surrounding communities is violent.
So what is the hate? What is the hate?
Well, I think the hate is, again, it's sad to say, but we live in a culture where skin color is a big hate again. So you take my sister again, whose son has graduated from North Carolina State, very successful, a coach, all this stuff, and he gets stopped by a cop. And we're not on there, but we're going there. He gets stopped by a cop because he has a little bit darker skin. Then they portray him different. But again, going back to what you're saying, if you look in the white America, if you look on paper, he's white. You understand what I'm saying? So again, the culture of who we are, a lot of times go back to not just our culture or what we eat and stuff. We can come to agreement, well, you don't like this, you don't like that. But again, on our skin color, why come it's not available for us as much as it is for everyone else? Why come I can't get this, or why do I have to prove? Okay, go back to this. There are some grants that are written for Native Americans. Why come the white people can't get it? Why come the black people can't get it? Because there's written for Native Americans. You understand what I'm saying? There's some things that white people are able to get that we can't get. Why can we not just bring it that everybody is treated equal, that it's not a Native grant, it's not a white grant, it's not a black grant, or if we get money, it's not a handout?
That means some people lose.
Yeah, I mean, why is everything, if the black man get money, it's a handout. If the white man get money, he's living below because he's having to get money. If the Native people get, our culture is we work for everything we get because we're workers. Why come the government, as we see it, can't understand? Why come there couldn't be land that was given to here and land that was given here? Why do we feel like that we have to work to buy back land that was already here? Who determines who owns the land?
Ouch.
That's the question. Who determines who owns the land? You know who determines it? And I say this, because the white man discovered it, he thinks he owns it. And that's just, so now here we are, we're working for the white man to pay him back for something that already belongs to us. And it's sad. And then, whenever it comes to this right here, like I'm married to a white woman. My son has Native blood, and he has white blood in him, whatever she is. I don't know her ancestry. But at the end of the day, his culture, because he is Native American, he is looked on different because nobody knows that he's Native American. Whenever I come to Virginia, you know what everybody tells me? They don't even know anything about Indians here. All they know about is, are you Latino? Are you mixed? And it's sad that I can go to North Carolina and everybody knows about the history of the Indians because a lot of them are there, but come to one person and they're like, we only seen Indians on Westerns. And that's sad because now Virginia don't know anything about Indians or the culture of Indians. Well, I mean, they go down towards Richmond, power tenants.
And the Monica tribe has been doing a lot of work trying to organize. Done a lot. But you're right. It wasn't. They had to fight for every little piece and step in ways in North Carolina. I mean, I'll give this credit to the Eastern Band of Cherokees. They beat the state legislature up for 100 years to get what they've got and to make space.
But the question is, why do we have to do that?
Yeah.
That's the thing. If we already own something, why do we have to beat up people to prove that we own it?
You can't ask a black person that. We fighting every step of the way.
We're agreeing with one another. I'm just saying.
That's kind of the problem, right? What is it about white people that we need to change the way we talk and think so that we accept the responsibility for this problem and accept that it's a problem? Because if it's a privilege, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's going to be people on one side of this who want no part of this conversation because they're like, there's got to be a rail on top and a rail on bottom.
Yeah.
And I'm going to choose the rail on the top.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be that. And I'm going to be that white guy. And y'all can whine, but I have my property rights. I worked for what I got.
Yeah.
Right.
I have my rights as a human being.
Yeah.
I worked for that. This country guarantees those rights. And I'm not opting into some kind of like socialist, communist, God is red agenda that's going to destabilize this world. Okay?
And that's
then
true.
You've got another group of people, all in Charlottesville, who are like, I agree with everything you say. What do we do now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, let me interject on this part from my point of view. When you start telling somebody that they have to give up something, because that's what you're really asking white America to do, or especially not the ones who have, but the ones that's trying to get. You mean to tell me that, okay, that plot of land that I have to fight 50 graduates to get, now you want me to have to fight 700 people? You know, you want me to fight, when you say immigrant, the Hispanic community for the property, the Asian community. Now you want me to give up the black. I'm already having a tough enough time trying to make, you taught me this, to try to make myself look successful in the white world. Now you want me to have to compete against the world as a whole? That's what you want me to do? And when I look at it like that, it's hard to say like, God, okay, well, what do I do? So then you have the kids that grow up, and then it's not even the inner cities anymore that have the drugs and have all the different things that are interjected into their community to try to bring up some kind of wealth. Well, that trap, that cheese that they're chasing leads to a trap that leads to the penitentiary. And then once I put that felony on your back, that's something that doesn't come off here in Virginia. You know, so then it's a setup to always boost up the next person.
Yeah. And this gets back to the spiritual, what Pastor Rodney was saying. I mean, I think if we go back to basics on this, on the native piece of this conversation, you go to any native culture in this continent, the answer to who owns the land is nobody. Like,
somebody own the land. How can you be trespassing?
How can you own land in native culture?
Well, the thing about
white people own the land in native culture.
Whenever you look at this in native culture, where we put our feet at, it should have been our land.
Home.
It should have been home. But the home has been invaded by people that have come up over on the boat that says, okay, and this is just where we are, where they said, okay, but just because you're there, now I'm going to okay, native people, we work. The white people wanted to get the education. A lot of our native, my dad, I mean, he's 83, rest his soul, but I mean, my dad only went through 4th grade because he had to work on the farm. That's what they did. So the native culture says, we'll just do this and we'll just have where the white man says, I'm going to the judge and we're going to decide that this land belongs to me, that I'm going to divide it up and I'm going to make subdivisions out of it. I'm going to do this, I'm going to make money, I'm going to do all this. Where the native people were just saying, we're just happy and free to be on a piece of property. We're not trying to divide it up and do all these other things. So that's the reason why the Cherokee people have fought so hard to say, I got to go back to government and get what belongs to me back. And, you know, if we look at it from a spiritual standpoint, it's like, why should we have to go back to the devil to get what God already gave to us?
Now let me ask you this, Pastor Rodney.
You brought up the Cherokee thing.
I have hold on, Giles. I gotta say this one. Now look at this one, Pastor Rodney. Now on my mom's side is Native American. My grandmother is 100% Native American. Papers and everything, right? So my children are the last descendants that can receive money from the government,
right,
if we do everything right. Now let me ask you this. Let me play, for lack of a better word, devil's advocate, because you brought that in. how can because of the way Indians followed the herd to make sure that they had provision, how can a nomad own land?
So you talking about not native?
Native never really constructed a place. Very few places by rivers and everything, but very few Native American cultures did not live by nomadic rule.
Yeah.
So if you're a nomad, just because I walk through a place, how can I say I own it?
Well, here's the thing. If you walk through a place that nobody owned, and whenever they came over here and everything, it was no like, here's your title to this plot. Here's your title to that plot. So it was like, this is the land that I'm standing on. So this is my land. And so, that's the thing about it. The culture of us is like, we've got, we go to that where the white man says, okay, but I'm going to do it and we're going to get legal rights to this land. The natives was never looking to get legal rights. They were just saying, hey, I'm enjoying where I'm at. We're setting up camp here. We're doing this. And then you have other people that have come in and just pretty much says, okay, I discovered it and now I'm going to find a way of getting it. And so that's the reason why it's very hard for Native people or any other people to receive that, because I go back to this right here, and shout out to the Lumbee people. I have my Lumbee card here. So in order for me to have this Lumbee card, I have to have 0.25% of Native blood. I have to know everything about my tribe. I have to know everything that goes on in the district. I have to go back to the tribal area every 2 months in order to keep this card. So this card right here is very hard to be kept, because now your descendants would have to know, your kids would have to know everything about their history, have to have the blood, have to have all that stuff just to prove a point that we're Native American.
I have the information, and this is sad. I have the information at my disposal.
Yeah.
But because I look more like my grandfather than my grandmother, so when I go down there and I go to where the tribe is in North Carolina, I don't look like I belong.
Yeah.
So then it's kind of, if I did it, it would be for my kids to get money for school and health care and things of that nature, right? So then at that point, I'm using, now, it's a catch-22 for me because I have the blood in me, and it can be proven. It's very simple. But because I don't look Native American, or I look like I have enough Native American in me to be able to really celebrate my own bloodline, I feel guilty taking something from the land that is my birthright, but I don't look like it's my birthright.
Well, see, this is the thing.
And that's something I've been struggling with for probably about 15 years.
But I'm saying this even for the Native people. Why do I have to carry around a card to prove who I am?
Because of people that look like me.
But do you
know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I have to carry this card and say, hey, this is who I am. This is, I'm from the Native company. I got my Lumbee card. This is who we are, and everything. Why do I have to carry that around just to prove a point to people, or try to get a percentage off, or do this or do that? It's like, why do I have to prove myself? Why does he have to prove himself? Why do you have to prove yourself to people? Why come they just can't take who we are and deal with who we are and just say, hey, you were Native, your descendants was Native here. We want to do something for you, or whatever it may be. Why do we always, again, going back to what we first said, who owns the land? Why do we have to keep proving that we own the land?
Does England still own us?
No, I mean, look.
Think about it, though. You said all the rules and
That's a question right there.
Think about it. Does England still own us? If we're going by the rules that were set by what they brought over here.
No, we made our own rules. That's the Constitution.
Did we really make our own rules, though?
No, no, you're right.
Or is the Constitution just a relabeled version of you thinking that you have something that you really don't?
Well, there you go. I mean, I think that's where it comes back to these questioning all the big things in our system to confront the long-term effects of white supremacy and of racism, but then not to leave it there in the sense of people thinking, oh, okay, white people are bad, so good white people should just move to the side and admit that they're bad.
Yeah, no.
Right? But there's another side.
I don't believe in that either.
Right, but there's another side though here, which is that if we don't actually get right back to basics on property rights, who owns the land, what is real estate? What is real estate? You know, because it all comes from British common law and the buying and selling of land that was seized from the tribes.
Yeah.
And that blueprint of DNA then moved west every 30 to 50 years with a bigger army and a bigger government, and created different rules out west for the land grant tribes, different setups, different rules, but with the same power dynamic, same problems, same setup. And then you add slavery to that and emancipation to that, and like you say, I get 40 acres, you get a future. You know, like we're still in this place where if you say equity, how do you get the story all the way back there?
Yeah.
And deal with it in today's dollars, with today's property lines, with today's court system, with today's relationships between you, me, and him.
You can.
How do we even get to some place that's like a conversation about real?
It's a unicorn.
Yeah. Well, see, one of the things that we have to realize is we like Martin Luther King and everybody created equal, but that's not true. I mean, we go back to land of the free, home of the brave. We want to sing that, but what's free? How's the land free? Go back to the land. How is it free whenever we have to purchase everything that we go? I mean, every spot, whether you put a house on it, whether you do this or whatever, that spot has to be purchased. And if this man over here wants this much for it, you've got to pay that price in order to receive that land. So you're here or you inherit land, whichever one. But at the same time, it's never free. So how do we go back to say who owns the land? How do we go back to the first point that we're saying, how can we get to the place where the land should be divided if we want to divide it, if whatever. The land should have been divided so that people wouldn't have to work and buy back something that they were already on. You know, that would be like you purchasing your car, or just say, I gave you a car, and then you trying to buy it back. I mean, it's, you know, and these are things, I'm just saying, where do we come to the common ground to say, you know, it's fair for the black man, it's fair for the white man, and what can Brown do for you?
I think that's funny. So I think that it all, for the land part, it all starts with how do you reference the people that are walking across the land? If I don't see you as valuable or as an equal human being, then I don't think that you should own what I regard as one of the hottest commodities. You know, land is something that people aspire to have. So if I don't even look at you to where, there's neighborhoods that if I walk down there, I'm gonna be watched the whole entire time. Like, I mean, on the street, which is supposed to be a public park. Like, just cause why are you over here? You know? So it's not like a bad.
The first cheese.
Absolutely.
If you go back to our metaphor, there, it was the first cheese. Like, you came over indentured and white, or immigrant and white, the first thing you were trying to do is get your own land. So you could put a border around it and say, I have the rights of a property holder.
But then the second one was you grab people to protect your land. So then the people that are supposed to be human beings just like you, or you're using like cattle, or you're using like watchdogs, or you're using like, you know what I'm saying? So then and see, that's why I see the problem is I don't think that white America has genuinely looked at other races as people, as they're humans because of their anatomy, but I don't think they look at them as people, like truly as people, because you have to justify why they're here, what they can do, what value they have. So then mentally, I think that we're still all viewed as property of some sort that's not white.
And with that saying, the property that we once said that was ours is no longer ours, because whether we drank it away, gave it away, or whatever we did.
Oh, don't forget the measles and the blankets.
Yeah.
You know, the smallpox or whatever. Tell it all, Pastor.
All these things, and whenever it was brought and everybody came here, one of the first things, as he said, disease, all these things came, all these things began to happen, and we suffered just as much as anybody else did. We were in slavery. The blacks was in slavery. There were some white people that was in slavery. I'm not exempting some white people in slavery. But I'm saying at the same cost, everything that we thought we owned, we no longer own. Because eitherwise, we got drunk, the white people got us drunk, and we like liquor. I mean, that's, Indians and firewater don't mix. So if you got Indian blood in you, don't drink it, it'll make you go crazy. I'm just letting you know. It's just, and so we sold it, or we did this or whatever. But at the end of the day, it still doesn't say that it didn't belong to us.
Yeah.
It belonged to us, even if it was taken away. You know, because I can give you that watch, but if I decide to take it away, I took what I given you. Yeah. It was already yours, but. So going back to what we're saying, how can we resolve? I know there are going to be white people that's listening that's going to say, I don't want this. There are going to be black people say, I don't care about this. You know, Indian. So I'm talking about us three, that we're agreeing on the same thing. How can we come to agreement that it should be fair across the board for everybody if we're going to say that everybody should be treated right? It was a long time. Again, Henry Berry Lowry, you know, he fought for the Indians to be able to vote. I mean, it was a long time before we could vote. It was a long time before we could actually have the privilege of what the white man had, because we were considered, it was white and black back in the day. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know where the Indians sit on the bus? With the black people, because we were darker skin. I mean, you know where they went to the bathroom? Where the black people, you know, that's who we were back in the day, not even realizing that we were here before anybody else. And if we were going to segregate, then we should have been telling the white man, you sit in the back of the bus, you know, and you sit back there with the black people. And we drive the bus because the bus belonged to us, because you were driving on our land. But I mean, in that culture, what happened is the white man came over, and he began to take over the black man, the native man, and he began to control everybody. And that's the whole thing with the situation is we feel like, I feel like as a native man, and I'm not holding it against you, I'm talking about ancestries, not now, but I'm saying what can we do now? I feel like we have never got a fair shot. We have never got a fair chance. I know that he's saying that he's never got a fair chance. There's some people, some white people that feel like they have never got a fair chance, but there are a lot of people in the white America that are continuing to go on with life as like there's no other race. And that's the thing that for me that hurts is that they can go on and like say again, there's no other race. Like I'm just going on and it's my four and no more. So I got my little thing, and we're good here, and you know we're not going to do anything else here. So I just feel like, as far as us, we worked hard for what? That's the question I have. Mm-hmm. What do we work hard for? To realize that we wind up with still buying our land back from the man that just found it.
Yeah.
I got a question.
We gotta wrap the show.
Wait a minute. We got a quick question though, because thank you for the viewership.
Yeah.
In the rats and cheese metaphor, we're all rats. How do the rats decide to collectively dismantle the maze to find the cheese? What do these gentlemen think? What do these gentlemen think? Well, from the black perspective, or from Razor's perspective, the maze, I've never seen a rat build the maze, right? So I really don't feel that the only power that we have is not going into the maze. But unfortunately, if something is big enough and strong enough, it can pick you up by the tail and place you inside the maze at its own.
This is the danger of giving a metaphor to razors.
Yeah. So, but you understand what I'm talking about, though. So when it comes to the thing that always helps every situation, and my pastor helped me with this, is that the truth overrides everything. When you see somebody doing something wrong, you call it out. When you see situations to where, let's use Charlottesville for a second. I know I shouldn't, and people gonna go crazy, but let's say the situation where the police officers are upset at the chief of police for what she's doing, for firing people, for holding people accountable. Well, if the community was saying that the police was a problem, and I have police officers as friends, so I'm not against the police at all. If the community was saying that the police officers are a problem, and you have somebody who's holding the police accountable for what they're doing, and now the police are unhappy, then you got people that say, okay, well, it's time for us to get rid of the police chief. Where's that coming from? Where is this coming from? Is that a rat in the maze? Mm-hmm. Or is that somebody that constructed the maze itself? Mm-hmm. The person behind the curtain is always the most powerful piece to be played. You know
the reason why the person behind the curtain is so powerful? Because the person behind the curtain can open it or they can close it.
Yeah.
That's just simple. They can open it or they can close it. They have control over the curtain. We just have control over who we are.
Yeah.
And in the rat race, as we're saying, we're just rats. But if you got control over the maze and you turn the sign for the native people and the black people to go this way, and when the white man comes, you give him a free pass.
Yeah.
I mean,
to whom much is given, much is required.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say with the, metaphors only go so far.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that, the point of talking about ourselves in terms of rats is to link it to psychology and like the basic instincts that we have as humans, right?
Yeah.
Another piece of it is to say that's not all we are as humans. You're a pastor, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're a spiritual
exactly.
leader.
Yeah.
So don't be a rat.
Yeah.
Don't be a rat.
Yeah.
Look at these human beings. So if you think about Chief Brackley in that situation you're describing, doing what the community asked her to do, having done the hardest job there is in the world as a black woman during a year when the whole world is focused on, her type of job. Mm-hmm. She's a human being.
Mm-hmm.
She's a leader. Mm-hmm. She's a person.
Yeah.
And she's taking on something so hard. Mm-hmm. And if the minute that the community gets uncomfortable, just change the part out. Mm-hmm. Just change the part out. That's not a human being.
But that's the thing, though, because she's a human being, because she's a person. The color aspect gets attached to it. She's a black woman. She's a black. You know what I'm saying? What he's saying, right? But that's the reality to it. Like, and the media, we play a large part of that because to describe who the person is, certain analogies tell you what color.
Black female police.
Black female. Yeah.
I know all I need to know.
Yep. You done told me everything. Yep. And if Mayor Walker does something good in the community, and I say something about it, I'm only saying it because she's a black female. Right. It has nothing to do with the work that she's done. Right. If I say something about, I forget, the police chief that was here long ago, you know what I'm saying? If I say anything about him, then I'm against police altogether. You know what I'm saying? It goes right back to when Kaepernick took a knee about things that were going. All somebody that didn't look like him had to say was, he's against America. And everybody's against it.
We gotta go. We gotta wrap this show.
Okay.
We're gonna be back next Monday.
Yes.
12 to 1. Follow us on Facebook. This is the first live one. Thank you, Pastor Rodney, for doing this with us.
Next week is a great show, and you're going to be surprised who comes on. Yeah. You're going to be really, really surprised. So if you think this is all about we're bringing in people of color, and that's what they're talking about, you're totally wrong. Make sure you tune in next week. You're going to be surprised who sits down in this chair.
You're not going to tell them?
You want to tell them?
No, I don't have that confidence in your ability to turn out guests yet.
Wow. Did you hear that? White racism.